Hey everybody, today we're going to be looking at models of division and trying to really remember what division is about. Pause your video and think of a definition of division right now. Most of you are probably thinking division has to do with putting together groups, dividing out groups of. So it's the inverse or the opposite of multiplication. Whereas multiplication is repeated addition, division could be thought of as repeated subtraction. We're going to be getting into some pretty tricky division problems, and I'm going to show you a few different methods to help you understand what's happening when you're dividing. Ultimately, we're going to use the standard algorithm for division, which ends up being the easiest way to do it. The reason why I'm showing you these other ways is to help you understand what you're doing and why. It's important not to just memorize a set of routines that can be easily forgotten again, but to really understand what you're doing. So if we think of division as repeated subtraction, I could set up my problem for repeated subtraction. I might look like this. Right here, I am going to just start thinking of chunks of numbers I can take out of 30 so what I'm going to do is over here, I'm going to put 345, and this is going to become my subtraction problem where I'm going to repeatedly subtract. So if I think to myself, well, I know that 3 times 30 is 90. That's an easy number for me to use. Well, then I'm going to subtract my 90 out of 345. And that is 255. Well, yeah, there's definitely another 90 in there. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to add some lines. 3 times 30 is 90. So now I'm going to subtract another 90, which is 165. Yep, there's another 90 in there. So I'm going to go 3 times 30 is 90. I could get tricky and do 6 times 30 and save myself a couple steps, but I'm going to stick with my 3s. And I'm going to, again, need to subtract 90 because I am taking out another 90. That's going to leave me with 75. Well, I don't have another 90 in there, do I? But I could multiply 30 times 20, and I would get 60. So now I'm going to subtract 60. I'm going to make a new problem over here because I'm running out of space. 75 minus 60. And that answer is 15. Well, I no longer have, I wrote 20 up here. I no longer I can't take 30 out of 15. So I am at a stopping point. So now I'm going to take all of these numbers. These are the numbers that I was taking out of my 350. And if I add them up, I've got 3, 6, 9 plus 2 is 11. So my answer is 11 with a remainder of 15. So there's my answer, 11, remainder 15. Repeated subtraction is a little messier than the standard algorithm. It might take a little bit longer, but when you're getting into these double, triple digit division problems, it's a great strategy and a great way to wrap your mind around what you're doing. So I'm going to give you one more example. Here's my division problem. Go ahead and set that up as a repeated subtraction problem. Pause your video. Okay, how many 12s can I take out of 288? 12 times what would get me close to 288? I like my 10s. So 12 times 10, what would that be? 12 times 10 is 120. That's a good starting point. So now what are you going to do? Yep, you're going to subtract the 120 right here. And I've got 168. Okay, now how many 12s can I get into 168? Well, I can go with my 10 again, and so I'm going to put my little addition sign, and now I'm going to subtract my 120. I'm getting another group of 120 out of there. Now I'm down to 48. Okay, I bet a bunch of you went, ooh, 48 and 12, those numbers go together nicely. I can get exactly 4 out. 4, and that is 4 times 12 is exactly 48. And so, whoops, that was supposed to be an 8. So I get a remainder of 0. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at this and decide where in the world our answer is. Remember, we are trying to figure out how many groups of 12 we can make out of 228. And so I'm going to take these numbers up here, these are the groups that I took out, and I'm going to add these numbers together. So 10 plus 10 is 20 plus 4. So my answer is 24. It might look like this, or you might write it out like this. Okay, I'm going to give you some problems. If you really liked the box method that we did before, you can use that, but I would prefer you try this method just to wrap your brain around it. So I'm going to give you some problems on the next sheet, and instead of doing your workbook sheet, which is 5-3, I'd like you to do the problems that I give you. So go ahead and pause your video in just a second. Okay, here are your problems. Pause your video here so that you have them available to you. Make sure you're using scratch paper because I'm going to want to see a photo of that. Go ahead and use pen. It's really hard to see pencil on a camera, and I'm struggling to be able to tell what you're writing. So give me a nice clear picture, maybe a couple pictures, and use something dark to write with so that I can tell what you're doing. All right, you guys have fun. This is kind of a fun little strategy. Wrap your brain around this math puzzle. Okay, can't wait to see what you do.